What you keep calling restlessness is not restlessness. It is what it feels like to stand beside something enormous that just changed position in your life and has not made a sound yet. Chosen one, sit down for this one. They say heaven went speechless at what you just activated, and almost everyone who hears that sentence hears it wrong. Heaven wasn't shocked. Heaven doesn't get shocked. There is a pattern in the old text that almost no one notices, and once you see it, you can't take it away. There are times in that record when the answer doesn't sound like words. Since that time, silence never meant absence. It comes as silence. The sound of writing something down is silence. When you record something, you hear silence. When you turn something on, you made it quiet on purpose. A few days ago, something took place. It could have been a choice. Or maybe it was a no. This is the first time in years that you've really said, "No," out loud. It could have been the tiniest thing in the world. A call that you didn't answer. A room you left. A prayer that you finally said without being polite. Nothing happened that could be seen. Nothing to confirm. There was no sign in the sky. There was no call the next morning. The bills were still there, and the kitchen was still the kitchen. But something stuck with you. And the unease you've had since then isn't anxiety. Being next to something very big, that hasn't said anything yet, makes you feel this way. In the time we have together, these things will happen. Before anything else, you'll know exactly what was set off. Not vague words. It doesn't feel warm. The actual mechanism was named and explained, so that you can see it at work this week. Second, you'll know why it hasn't gotten to you yet. Before we go one step further, I want to make this clear. It's not a weight. This is not a punishment. It's not that you didn't believe enough, or had enough faith. It's not that at all, and almost no one says it out loud. Third, today you will be given something to do. Small, specific, and doesn't cost anything. There needs to be something between what was activated, and what you can actually receive. Since this is the whole thing in one line, there are two separate circuits for activation and reception. Heaven replied as quickly as light. It's coming to you as fast as a radio whose antenna is broken. It's been years since you blamed your faith for something that was always a receiver problem. One more thing. You almost said that sentence. You practiced it in the shower, the car, or while you were lying awake at 200 in the morning with the ceiling above you. You didn't say it. Something smaller and safer, you said. The part you didn't say has been in your pocket like a stone ever since. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission grows into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. But more than your support, we want your presence. When you head to our community through the link in the description, or the pinned comment, you aren't just visiting a site. You are entering a community of like-minded believers. This is a sanctuary where you can post your prayer requests, lift up the burdens of others, and engage in daily discussions with a family that speaks the language of faith. Whether you are joining one of our membership tiers for deeper study, sowing a seed of faith, or simply joining our daily morning prayers, you are helping us build a global altar of worship. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through a community that stands together. Each gift you give acts as living water for those in our community seeking healing and hope. Give, and it will be given to you, is the promise that sustains our shared mission. I invite you now to step out of the shadows and into this circle of prayer. Come with purpose, join the conversation, and plant your seed in fertile ground. Let's open the heavens together. Release your seed today, join our community, and see what God brings back into your life. That's not being weak. Pay attention to this. That sound comes from a system that has just changed its mind about who it works for. I will later on in this message tell you what really happened in that silence. Not a figure of speech. The real sequence in the right order. I'm going to explain why that silence is the most personal thing that has ever been said about you. Follow me until we get there, because everything else is just getting ready for it. Let me show you a sign. You began to check not for messages in the days that followed. You didn't say what you were looking for. You picked up and put down your phone. You saw nothing when you looked out the window. Listening to the house like someone looks for a late car in the driveway caught you off guard. You named that worry. That's what you called it. And maybe someone you love also called it that. But anxiety is the body getting ready for a threat it knows is coming. Something was different about what you did. You were not getting ready. You paid attention. The way you stand and the way you talk are not the same. Your body knows the difference. This is the start of why people only listen that way, when they have already heard something that has been said. It's not the listening that makes you sick. What you hear is what you receive. And underneath that is a mechanism that will explain the whole strange shape of the last few days. I'll show you how it works in a moment. I need to ask you for something quick before I go. If any of what I just said made you feel sick, type these 3 words in the section below. I wasn't worried, I was just listening. Not because someone is keeping track, but because calling something by the right name in front of witnesses is how it goes from being a symptom to evidence. This was carried by you alone and without a label. Name it so that other people can see it. Start with a big picture of the symptom. The most important inner moment of your recent life took place, and then nothing. There was no thunder, the door didn't open, there was nothing on your bank statement or in your inbox. And the phone didn't ring with the exact person you needed. It was just a normal Tuesday with a normal sky, and silence after a big moment does something special to the heart. That's not how it feels. It feels like an answer. It was you who spoke up in court, but the judge didn't say anything. And since you didn't have a word, your mind came up with the worst one it could think of: rejected, ignored, not enough. I know what you told yourself about it. You could have said one of 3 things. That you didn't hear God. That God heard you and told you no in a soft way, like a parent telling a child no. You might even tell yourself, but you would never say it out loud, that you didn't have enough faith to make it land. How long have you been running one of those 3 explanations in the background? Long enough that it stopped feeling like a guess and began to feel like a fact about you. Also, it's not true. Not any of the 3. This is what really happens, and it's a pattern that people who go through this season see over and over again. In the same order every time, with the same taste after every time. When something is really set off, the response doesn't stay in the speech category. It changes the groups. It goes from being spoken to being kept on record. Because a mechanism without a name goes away as soon as you go to sleep tonight. I want to give this a name. The silent ledger is what you walked into. That means the following. You can answer something in 2 different ways. You can say the answer out loud, which is quick, warm, right away, and light. And entry, which is slow, cold to the touch, and lasts forever, can be used to answer it. The weather is out loud, and the climate is entry. Out loud can be taken back tomorrow, and the entry is still valid. This isn't something I made up for this message either. There is a word in those old texts that means, Book of Remembrance. It is written in Hebrew. And Zikaron doesn't mean a memory in the soft way that we say, I remember summer. It refers to something that is written down so that it can never be forgotten or denied. People who were afraid of God talked to each other in that work, and the text says, He listened and heard. After that, a book of memories was written in front of him. Take note of the order. That's right, he heard. He didn't answer with a voice but instead wrote. In that scene, the silence doesn't mean that no one is talking. Writing sounds like the silence. That's how it works. When heaven hears something small, it speaks. When something is set in stone, heaven is quiet. The second one is hard for you, because you've spent your whole life reading the first one. I'm going to give you back the last 5 years. Because they don't mean what you thought they did. The times you marked as unanswered were not unanswered. They were let in. This is not being absent. This is the entry. There were other people in the room who had their turn, and you were not being passed over. It was like you were being written into a record that you could never read. That changes the way your history is written. You said the honest prayer that night, but by morning, nothing had changed. As this awakening grows inside you, know that helping with this mission is not a joke. It is a sign from God. You can support this work through the link in the description, or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself, Jesus says. This is not history, it is a living promise about your future. Come into this moment with faith and a plan. What God has already planned for your life can be unlocked through your giving. It was the year you kept going to something that never thanked you. That choice you made that cost you a friend, and didn't seem to give you anything in return. They've been on your mind as a list of things that didn't work out. Instead of a list of failures, they are a ledger. And a ledger is the most durable thing in the whole set. Up because it's where promises are written down by people who plan to keep them. You were not forgotten. You were caught on tape. Here's something free you can do with that today. Write down the date of the event that happened a few days ago, that you have been thinking about over and over. You should only write the date on paper in your own handwriting. There shouldn't be a journal entry or an explanation. Just the date and one line about what you did. Then read it out loud once more in your normal voice, since the paper is not what's important. The point is that you are doing the same thing that was done to you. Enter. By putting that moment on record instead of feeling, where it can be argued with at 3 a.m., you are taking it out of the feeling category. If what I said hit you in a real way, please let me know in the comments. It was written down, not turned down. That person who scrolls past this in an hour needs to see it written by someone else, not me. It's teaching coming from me. It's proof that it came from you. Now that you know something was recorded, it makes you think of a harder question, which is the one you are already thinking of. Where is the record if it was made? Why hasn't anything come? Because an entry in the ledger is great, but you can't eat it. It can't be used to pay rent or feel good on a bad Thursday. Say one honest thing in the comments before I get into it. I'm ready to receive it now. Say it there, because there is a difference between wanting something and saying you're open to it. Usually, all it takes is one spoken sentence that can be read back to you later. In the last few years, something clever was discovered in labs. That most of the people who really care about what we're talking about have never been told. Not because it goes against something holy, but because it came from a direction that not many of us are looking in. They were led by a doctor in New York who has worked on this for 20 years. They found something about how the mind was built that explains something that spiritually sensitive people have felt for decades, but never had a word for. Something so important that it goes all the way back to a Nobel Prize. Something so simple about how it's used that it sounds almost fishy the first time you hear it. I'll tell you exactly what they found in the next part of this message. Hold on to one question for now. What if the reason your inner world doesn't feel as full as it used to isn't getting older, not being disciplined enough, or not going to church enough? What would you do if someone stole something from you? Think about the week before, not the event itself. The way to get to the moment. Tell the truth about how that week went. It was bad. You've had one of the worst weeks in a while, and the two events don't seem to go together, because they're from different stories. Something broke that shouldn't have broken. A clock, a car, a tooth, or a bank notice. Someone you care about said the exact thing that has always made you feel soft. You had an old appetite that came back stronger than it had in years. It came back at night when you were too tired to fight it. Things went wrong with my sleep. You woke up more than once at 300 or 400 in the morning, wide awake for no apparent reason. There was a voice under it all. It was even worse that it used your own voice. There was an old sentence that said, "Who do you think you are? You've started things before. You always do this. Nothing you start lives through contact with a Tuesday." Now, tell me how you roughly explained that week. You thought it meant you were going in the wrong direction. Or you thought it was punishment, because you did something wrong, and got something taken away as payment. Or, even worse, you thought the whole thing was made up by you, and that life was just making you back to your normal size. These explanations seem so good, that no one has even looked into them. And all of them are going in the wrong direction. Here is how it works. Once you see it, that week will change in front of your eyes. There is no interference where something is very far away. It draws attention to things that are close by. Yes, that is true for both physical and this one. At the edge, static is worst. The door has the most pressure. When you're almost at the ground, right at the edge of your descent, that's where the turbulence is. It's embarrassingly consistent with what the old texts say about this. No, the wilderness doesn't come after the ministry. It comes right after the naming and before the beginning. The storm doesn't happen in the middle of a normal trip. It happens at the crossing. People who are lost are not met with the fiercest resistance in that whole library. People who are just one step away from getting there are hit with it. I'm also going to name this, because you will see it again, and need to be able to recognize it right away. This is the spike before the threshold. An interference level that goes up quickly in the hours before a threshold, and then goes down quickly after you cross it. There is also a physical layer to this. Because it was made that way, your nervous system will protect the identity it already has the most, when that identity is about to be changed. Every part of you that was organized around the old version of yourself makes the most noise right before that organization goes out of date. It's not a spiritual failure to do that. That is building design. When a house is being fixed up, it makes the most noise. Acclimatization, threshold, and silence are the steps that everyone goes through this season. They always happen in the same order. I've never seen it show up in a different order. That week is yours again. It wasn't an alert. It was a reading. You've used it against yourself as evidence. It showed that they were close. It wasn't a stop sign. There was a direction sign here, and it pointed right to where you were going to cross. The accusation used your own voice, because it needed a voice that you wouldn't question. And there wasn't much time left. That week wasn't when you broke down. That week was your last chance to defend a version of yourself that had already lost. This part will really hurt you. Anything on the other side of the interference will get stronger as it gets bigger. That saying doesn't make me feel better. It's a way to measure. It was a terrible week for you. Think about what that means about how big the thing behind it is. Now, this is what you do with it. This is something you can start doing the next time it happens, which will be soon. When the interference spikes again, which it will, you're going to do one thing first. You will say out loud, "This is a bearing and not a verdict." Then you will write down the date, and a short sentence about what form it took, not a thing else, not analysis. There is no prayer that goes against it. You're not going to fall, you're almost there. Take a moment to breathe. I really mean that. Open up your jaw. Let your shoulders fall out of your ears, and your tongue come off the roof of your mouth. They've been living there for about 11 years. It's enough to just be a person in a room for a moment. It's fall next year, and it's afternoon. In the late afternoon, the light turns the color of weak tea. You're standing at a window with a cup of coffee in your hand. The choice you have to make would have taken the current version of you 3 weeks, 4 conversations, and 2 nights of not sleeping. You are about to enter your divine future, but remember, this breakthrough is not for you alone. Your testimony is the bridge someone else will use to reach their own miracle. Archangel Michael is inviting you to visit community through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. By joining our like-minded community, you are no longer praying in isolation. You are adding your voice to a global sanctuary where we discuss the Word daily and stand in the gap for one another. This is not poetry when Jesus says, "Give, and heaven will open over you." On this platform, every seed you plant turns into oil for your destiny, fire for your calling, and a hedge of safety for your family. Now is your time. Step into our community prayer wall, share your heart, and as you give, watch God multiply what you let go of. Let's finish this journey together. Visit Out Community now, join the family, and see your heavens open. But you make it in 40 seconds. Not carelessly, that's clear. You check it out. When you feel the yes in your chest, you do something. Then you go back to what you were doing. There is no big event for it. You have a firm grip on the cup. It's not pride that you notice afterward, it's quiet. The room is very quiet after an argument that has ended and stayed over. In 2 months, you haven't asked anyone to reassure you. No, it's not because you became tough. It's because the second opinion you were looking for is now right there in the room with you. There is already that version of you. Not in a different life or world. There is only one repair between that version and where you are sitting now. And it doesn't take any time or effort to get there. You have already given huge amounts of both. What receives depends on how far away it is. A part of you thinks this sounds lovely, and nice things said in a calm voice don't always mean what they seem to say. That the sentence about having a very bad week, meaning something big, is exactly what someone would say to keep you interested. To think that way is not to be cynical. That thought is smart, it has kept you safe in the past, and I'm not going to tell you to put it down. Do not throw it away. Show it to me. Everything should be pointed at. You only need to test this claim the same way you would test any other claim. Not because it feels good, but because it tells you what will happen. A real mechanism makes predictions. So use the pre-threshold spike to look backward. Think back to the last 3 times something really changed in your life. Next, look at the week before each one. We have now reached the most difficult question in this message. You have been waiting for it. If something was recorded, and the interference proved you were at the door, then nothing has changed in your life. Please be clear about the symptom, as being vague will not help with this question. Your position has changed. It changed for you. Then you went back to a job with the same boss, the same tiles in the kitchen, the same aches in your body, and the same silence on the phone. And after 2 or 3 weeks of that, a very different shame shows up. Silent shame, the kind that makes you not talk about it with other people. That day, either you didn't tell anyone, or you told someone, watched their face, changed the subject, and haven't talked about it since. You did what most people do. You came to the conclusion that you made it up, because you were feeling bad, tired, or just wishful thinking, because the lighting was good. This is something you've been putting away under. Things I got excited about. Since you were 19. It's not true, and I can explain it in one sentence. The things you went through, and the things you were waiting for are on 2 different systems. Keep this difference in mind for the rest of your life. It's not the same thing to activate or arrive. They're not even the same kind of event. Activation happens right away. It has to do with the law. There is a record of the change of status at the moment it happens, just like a document is legally binding when it is signed, not when someone changes their mind about it. Nothing needs to go anywhere. There is no need to build anything. It's just true now where it wasn't true before. Arrival is not the same at all. Arrival means delivery. And in every system that has ever been used, delivery needs a receiver that works on the other end. This is where the silent ledger stops being poetic and starts being useful. The entry is perfectly held in the ledger. There's nothing wrong with the ledger. It has never been the ledger that was wrong. The state of the equipment on your side of the line determines whether an entry turns into an experience. Being open is not a virtue. Receiving is a skill. It needs your attention to work. About being able to think about 2 things at the same time. About the quality of how you see things. In the afternoon on a normal Wednesday. On how much of the room you can see before your tiredness blocks it out. Those are not ways to measure your love. They are measurements of a system that can get old, worn out, damaged, and also fixed. For the past 2 years, think about what that means. Good luck doesn't come in the form of a light beam with your name on it. It sounds like someone is just mentioning something. As an open door that you didn't notice, because you were too tired to see it. If it had been able to keep your attention for 11 more seconds, that thought would have changed your path. Here is the reframe. It will hurt a bit before it helps. It did happen as planned. It wasn't picked up. Think about your own life as you read that again. When you thought heaven had stopped talking to you. There was actually a year when the signal was still there, but the receiver wasn't working as well as it was meant to. You were not being turned down. A system was sending signals to you all the time, and never thought about stopping. You were standing there with a radio full of static, trying to figure out what kind of person deserves silence. Here is your agency in this. It starts today and is smaller than you thought. Before you go to sleep tonight, write down 3 things that came this week that you almost missed. Not very important. Big things are not at all what I want. Someone said something did not go as planned, or you felt the urge to call someone, but did not follow through. Do that for 7 nights. Being clear about this, what you are doing is not gratitude practice. Gratitude practice is about feeling better, while this is about something else. You are setting up an instrument. You are training your senses to pick up on small arrivals, because that's how most signals arrive. And a receiver that can't pick up on small signals can't pick up on big ones either. It just doesn't understand that yet. So far, if anything has put words on something you've carried by yourself, press the like button on this. God's favor comes into your life when you like this video. Not for my own good. Someone in your situation will see this at 3 a.m. on the worst night of their year. And the only reason it will get to them is because people like you marked it as true. Now I want to talk about how long the quiet lasts. Because you've been keeping track of it. Which is making you feel weird. This is a clear sign of the problem. You have set your own due dates. You've never told anyone about them. Because saying them out loud would sound like demands. And you wouldn't be the type of person to make demands on God, but they do exist. By the day I turn 18. Before the end of the year, when this lease ends, all of those dates have now passed. And every time one went by, a small part of you closed up. Not in a big way. You didn't give up your faith during those times. You slowly lowered the ceiling by an inch, and told yourself that you were becoming more true to life. Now, this is how you explained the wait. You thought it was a test of your patience, that there was an examiner somewhere, and that the test was to see how long you could stand at a closed door without complaining. If you did complain, the timer would start over. Or you chose to believe that God is waiting for you to be ready. That you haven't reached a certain level of character yet. And the door will open when you do. Being careful is important, because the second one has some truth to it, which is what makes it so painful. There is something called formation, but you have interpreted it as a test that you will always fail, which is not what it is. This is the real mechanism that will change how you feel about this afternoon. For a reason, the quiet lasts for a certain amount of time. Being in jail for a long time while someone makes a decision is not my sentence. The distance between the 2 points is being measured from your end of the line, not the other end. Take a moment to think about how any large transmission works. Nothing big comes at once to a receiver that can't handle it. Before delivery starts, there is always a time when the receiving side is ready and capacity is built up. Any engineer will say it more directly. You don't get delivery if you send more than the receiver can handle. You lose. That time gap is not empty time. It's the busiest part of the whole operation, but no one can see it from the outside, which is why it seems like nothing is happening. So, what are you putting together while you're quiet? Ability to. Being able to hold the thing without it hurting you. Being able to be in the room you asked for without having to perform, shrink, or block it in the 4th month. Being able to accept something good, without looking for the catch right away, is a real skill. A skill that most people never learn, because they were never forced to wait long enough to learn it. Here's where the thing I showed you before comes back. Do not forget the pre-threshold spike. Those rough weeks that keep coming while you wait. You've been seeing them as setbacks and proof that you're going backward. In no way are they setbacks. These people are the installation. For each of those long, hard weeks, you had to build a piece of the gear you'll need. The ability to keep going even when other people don't like you. Being able to keep going even when no one is listening. Being able to be misunderstood without having to spend 6 weeks defending yourself. You didn't get those from reading. They were gained during the bad weeks, and you didn't even notice. That's how all real capacity is gained. Now I'll give you back the waiting. This is not the end of a sentence. This line is being filled up. You've spent years in the position of someone who is being punished, when the real position you could have been in was that of someone who is being equipped. The same room, the same silence, but a whole different meaning. And what those years cost you depends on what they meant. You weren't made to wait. You were being given the power. Here's what's different today. There is also a change in the question you ask. Don't ask how long. There is no answer to that question. And each time you ask it, you hurt yourself a little more. Ask someone else. Find out what is being put in. Make time every week on the same day to write down one skill that you have better now than you did a year ago. 1. Something you could not do, stay with, or see before that you can now. After a month, you'll have 4 entries. And those 4 entries will do something that praise from someone else can't. They'll give you a price. You can stop waiting for nothing when you see a rate. It turns into a process with a direction. The very end is hidden. There is no doubt that the slope is there. You're not stuck. The page is loading. Put this in the comments if it made you feel something. Only if you really mean it. I let go of the due dates I set. Say it there, because a deadline you set in private stays powerful as long as it stays private. It's also not the same when you give someone a deadline in front of other people at 300 in the morning. I want to close the loop I started earlier now. The one about what they found in those labs. I said I would talk about it again. And now I want to explain why I didn't bring it up right away. People who did the research didn't find information, they found a solution. A solution is only useful to someone who can see the full picture of the problem it solves. An hour ago, you couldn't see the shape. Now you can. Some of you have done things. That's the nice way to say it. If we're being honest, some of you have tried everything for years at real cost, and are still here. You have gone on retreats, fasted, written in your journal until your hand hurt, and gotten up at 5 a.m. for months on end to do a practice that other people said changed their lives. But all you got was tired. That history is true, but no one has told you that. That's why I want to tell you. You tried a lot of different things, but they all failed. It was all put in. More discipline, more study, more prayer, more work, and more sincerity. All of those interventions make what you are putting in bigger. Not a single one of them touched what gets sent. You've been turning up the transmitter for 15 years, while standing next to a radio that no one ever looked at. When the sound didn't get better, you thought it was your fault, so you turned it up again. This is not a story about someone who isn't disciplined. It's about someone who is very disciplined, but does it to the wrong thing. Here is the heaviest thing I need to say to you. I purposely put it off until now, because it doesn't land right until everything else is in place. Here is the symptom. And I want to be very clear about it. You check how much you pray. A second process is running in the background while you say the words, judging how well you are saying them. Did I say that? Were those things real, or were they just acts? Can I really talk to the ceiling? You're not praying at all by the end. The grade that you give is always the same. You've seen other people get things, and you were really happy for them. Also, there was something else under the happiness that you have never said out loud to a single person. The idea that they must have something that you don't, that there is a type of person for whom this works, and you are close to it, but not in it. And sometime in the last few years, you quietly put yourself in the category of not being a bad person but a spiritually inferior one. Sincere, but it doesn't work. There but not picked. In a way that leads to proof. I understand how you say that. You call it being humble. I want to be clear about this, it's not humility. Being humble has cost me things, but this has never cost you anything. It says, I am small, but he is not, and then it does something. What you've been doing tells me I'm not enough, then it stops doing anything, and calls that wisdom. They are two different operations that are dressed in the same coat. You call it a lack of faith too. That sentence about yourself sounds like it's been used a lot. It is a mistake to think this is how things work, and it costs the most of any mistake in this whole setup. It was a mistake in reception, that you thought was a mistake in devotion. Everything that happens after that one mistake is because there is only one way to fix a problem that you think is with your devotion more devotion. So, you did more, and when that didn't work, you didn't question the diagnosis. Instead, the diagnosis was confirmed, because that's the only way to explain it within that framework you didn't apply enough. Can you see the trap? The loop is closed, so you can't get out of it from the inside. Every time the treatment doesn't work, it's seen as proof of the original diagnosis. This is why it went on for 15 years. The structure of the mistake made itself sealing, not because you were slow. At the same time, the silent ledger kept doing what it always does, entry after entry. There was nothing lost, taken away, or forgotten. This side's record has been perfect the whole time. You thought you were the problem on that side. That being said, let me tell you how much the wrong diagnosis really cost, because you deserve to have it counted fairly. In the end, you chose not to go into the rooms because you knew ahead of time that you were not the type of person those rooms are meant for. You lost the sentence you were about to say. The one I named at the beginning. And it's still in your pocket like a stone. For a certain number of years, you had to deal with low-level self-suspicion all the time. Which is exhausting in a way that never shows up as a reason you are tired. Listen to the fix now, and make it as big as the mistake was. You don't have a problem with faith, you have a problem with how you receive. Also say it the other way to make it lock. It was never that you didn't have enough faith. It was what people thought had nowhere to land fully. This is activation and arrival again. You can see why I carefully split them up. This whole time, your activation has been fine. If I'm being honest, your activation has been quite strong. Which is why the interference around you has been so persistent. Your arrival has been going through a part that no one ever told you could be broken or fixed. You were never less important than anyone else. You weren't fixed enough. Today's agency is a one-act play that is harder than it sounds. Write the verdict down and read it out loud, once by yourself in a room. Say the sentence that you've been carrying, no matter how you word it. I don't believe enough. I'm not right. Some people can use it out loud, so you can hear how it sounds when it's not in your head. Because it's never been outside your head, then say the change after it. This was never my faith. This was my welcome. After that, be still for 30 seconds and don't say anything during that time. Take a moment to rest here. You just put down something you've been carrying around with you since before you knew how to name it. Your body needs a minute to recover. Touch the chair. Feel the ground beneath your feet. In the next 60 seconds, you don't need to fix anything, and no one will grade you on how you use them. What's going on in your chest at the moment can stay there without being interpreted. This is how it sounds. I think that's true for someone else, but not me, because you know what you've done. You know the things you should have apologized for but haven't. You already know how little you've prayed this year. It seems like the people this is for are further along than you are. First, I'd like to say something true about myself. I'm not sure what time it is. I have no idea what day it is. Also, anyone who says they know the day is either lying or trying to get something from you. Some of this I can describe, but some of it I can't see at all. It would be better for me to be honest, and only know half of what I'm talking about, than to know everything and be wrong. This is what I know. Right now you have the standard backward. You believe this is for the ready person. It's never been for someone who is ready. This is for someone who is ready to say out loud that they are not who they say they are. Being ready is not a requirement for entry. Being honest about not having it is. A year from now, it's a normal weekday morning. You're in the kitchen early in the morning, before anyone else is awake. And the light has a certain quality that only lasts for about 20 minutes at that time. It's something simple, like toast or coffee. Something your hands can do on their own. You also notice that your back is not supported. That's the whole thing. Your back is straight. Your jaw isn't tight. The program that has been running in the background for 11 years, and looks for things that might go wrong, is not running. It seems like the day ahead is something you walk into instead of something that comes at you. While you stand there, you think of something. An idea about a direction that is short, clear, and not rushed. You are aware of it. That's the miracle here, even though it doesn't look like much. You see it, think about it for a second, and then you know what to do with it. There is no group in charge. There isn't any 3-week fog. You know it. That past self of yours is real and not too far away. One fix is all it takes. The person who was in that kitchen, and the person who is listening to me, now are not more years apart. They are also not more sincere or hardworking. You have already given all three in amounts that most people would never even think of. Let's do something together. It will take about 90 seconds. If you can, put your feet flat on the ground and close your eyes. Think of a desk with a book open on it. It's not a book from heaven that gives off light. A normal ledger that has been used, and is worn at the edges. There is an entry on the most recent page, with the date of your moment on it. That page doesn't have your writing on it. It was written by someone else, and won't go away. Now, hear this as something that was told to you, instead of something that was claimed. This is the word that has been over that page since it was written. It was sent here the instant you did it, and nothing has changed it since then. Tomorrow, nothing you do will be able to erase it either. Here is the new frame. You've been trying to write something all season. It was written. It was never your job to get it written. From today on, your job is to learn how to read it. Now, lay your hand flat on your chest over the middle of your ribs and lightly press. Feel how hard your hand is on the paper. That weight is the anchor. As soon as the old verdict comes back, which should be this week, put your hand there and press once. This minute will stick in your mind more than in your body. Write this in your own words in the comments if my words don't work. I claim what was written down. This is the right time for me to ask for this, because claiming is not the same as hoping or asking. Plus, you can only do it if you know there is something to claim. That sentence would have been a wish an hour ago. At this point, it's a true reflection of your legal situation. Sign up for this channel. When you subscribe, God's prophetic promise and alignment are brought into your life. I haven't given you this whole thing yet. I showed you the ledger, the interference, the 2 circuits, and how long the quiet was. There is still a part that I have named 4 times without telling you what it is made of, what breaks it, or what fixes it. That part comes next. This conversation is mostly made up of people who have never been given it. This is why, from this point of view, silence has never meant absence. It's the sound of a response when it stops being speech and turns into a record. There was a reason for what happened to you a few days ago. It was written down in the silent ledger, which is how things become permanent instead of just encouraging. This is what. It wasn't a gift or a favor that was written down. It changed what the law says about you, and took effect right away. Just like when you sign something, it becomes legal right away. There is also a difference between activation and arrival, so a standing does not automatically turn into an experience. The activation took place very quickly. Arrival is based on equipment, and your equipment has been worn down by everyday life for years. You've been treating this wariness as a spiritual failure by putting in more effort, which is the only treatment that can't fix it. And this is who? This is for the person who has been sincere for a long time with little to show for it, who kept showing up without an audience, and who has been quietly sure they were not good enough while running an unusually strong signal through a receiver that hasn't been fixed. It's not a small group of people, it's a certain one. Also, you already know which side of the line you are on since you are still here. Now, everything depends on one question. Are you able to receive what was recorded? It doesn't matter if it was recorded, that is settled. I want to close the loop I started. I asked you to think about something that was found in a lab. In 1981, Dr. Roger Sperry won the Nobel Prize for work that almost no one in a spiritual conversation has ever heard of. By looking into what happens when the 2 halves of the mind are split, he proved something about what happens when they are joined. The 2 halves of the brain were designed to work together, not separately. Researchers call this state of synchronized brain activity. It makes it easier to see things in a wider range of ways, and makes decisions that used to take weeks much faster. Based on tests of young children, about 98% of them score at the level of creative genius. Less than 1 in 1,000 people still have it as adults. It had nothing spiritual in it. It was slowly and physiologically taken away by everyday modern life over decades of broken attention and exhaustion. This difference is the most important thing I can say right now. Repentance is needed for a moral failure. A physical erosion needs to be fixed. A woman from California talked about how her life was before she found this. For years, she had honestly tried everything her community had to offer, and kept ending up in the same place. She thought what they said. She didn't feel like reality was behind them. She said something got better after about 10 days. A path that had been blocked was now clear. Not because she worked harder, but because what she gets fixed. A man from Texas talked about it in a different way. Years had gone by while he kept things together for everyone else while his own life got weak. He said, prayer felt like talking into a wall. The signal was good, but the receiver was off. After 2 weeks, he woke up and said his mind was thinking about all the right things. There was no more fog. Both of those come from something that one team worked on for years. Neuroscientists led by New York neurosurgeon Dr. Daniel Barron compressed more than an hour of clinical neural sync technology into an 8-minute targeted auditory sequence. This is the type of whole brain protocol used in specialized medical settings. 8 minutes a day, with headphones on and eyes closed. The smart switch is what they call it. It's not a mood recording, a meditation app, or a relaxing sound that will make you feel better in the evening. The Sperry research led to the creation of the Genius Switch, a sequence that connects the two hemispheres and puts you back in the synchronized state you were in as a child. Things that didn't work well for you before in this area only dealt with a small part of the problem. This is a different mechanism that leads to a different kind of result. Not everyone should have the Genius Switch. It's for the chosen one who knows that God not only made the promise, but also the mind that needs to follow it. The person who has been honest for years without getting praise, who heard the call loud and clear, and kept coming back to it, even when the evidence wouldn't cooperate, and who is finally ready to stop seeing the fog as a flaw in their character. Most people will move on after hearing this. It's not a mistake that you are still here at this time. People who worked with Dr. Barone and looked it over said it would be a great deal even at $500. Neurofeedback that is done in person costs $300 an hour. It costs $7,000 for a home machine. It wasn't given away for $500, $200 or $100. It cost $49 when it came out. The price is now $39. There is an extra 10 off on the official page today. It comes with 4 free things. One of the best rated creators on the Calm app made this guided visualization. A smart grocery list that helps most families save more than $100 a month. A text about manifestation that is more than 100 years old. And an infographic you can print out of 5 habits to put on your wall. All of this is backed by a money-back guarantee that doesn't matter what. Listen 80 times. If it doesn't work for you like it has worked for 456 other people, you can get your money back in full, no strings attached. This is the only urgent thing I can think of, and it's not for business. In the synchronized state, you can see what God has already put close to you, in a way that you can't in the partial state. Not because the rule is new, but because something that can recognize it has been brought back. What was planned for you is already happening. The question is whether you and the receiver will ever meet in person. It's important to note that you can find tracks that sound like this, if you search for them by name on Spotify or YouTube. The Barone team looked into them. Nearly all of them did not have any neural sync technology in them. The name is on them because there is almost no reason not to name something. The part that makes the difference is something that only that team built. If what has been said hits home with you, the only places to go are the description below and the comment that has been pinned. Before you make any choice, you can read all the information on their own page. Pay close attention now. The tool doesn't stand in for God. It doesn't follow your orders. It doesn't give up anything for you. And it doesn't shut a door you're leaving open. What God is doing in you was never dependent on anything else, but when the receiver is fixed, it gives what God is doing more of what it was meant to land in. Let's talk about what you do with the things you've been given right now, tomorrow, and in a normal week. You might want to skip the first thing, because it is the smallest. In your own handwriting, write down the date from a few days ago and one line about what you did. There's no journaling going on. The act that was done on the other side of the line is being done again on your side. Enter. It changes that memory in 90 seconds. Second, run the 7 nights with few guests. Every night, 3 things that you almost missed came to you. Not big things, but small ones on purpose. When you calibrate an instrument, you never use loud signals. Instead, you use weak signals. Third, make a note of the interference. When the spike appears, which it will, you write down the date and the shape it took. And you say, "This is a bearing and not a verdict." Do not argue with it. Do not pray at it with a raised voice. Log it and continue. This will help you make a map that will eventually let you see doors before you reach them. This person felt something move when the mind was talked about earlier. That path is still there in the description and the pinned comment for that person. It's only a small step, but big changes have been made by taking small steps with a clear head. It's better for you to hear what's going to go wrong from me first. The sense of importance you have right now will go away in about 3 days. It won't go away because it was not true. It will go away because how you feel is like the weather. And everything I talk about tonight is like the climate. When it goes away, you'll think you were just feeling upset, and nothing happened. At that point, the whole thing usually ends. Do not think of the fading as a fix. You were told to write the date on paper that won't fade, which is why you did it. Third, there will likely be a day in the next 2 weeks when a spike hits so hard that all of this sounds like something you heard once from a nice voice. Press once with your hand on your chest. That's why that anchor was made. It doesn't need to feel like anything. It only needs to be done. You've come a long way. You're not being nice because most people didn't make it this far. You can feel that it is true, so it must be true. What I've said so far has all been to explain. There is no more explanation, and I have been keeping it for you. First, let's be quiet together. I'm not going to ask you to be thankful. That's not something that can be made by command. One thing is all I want you to notice. You're still here. Even though years have passed, deadlines have passed, and you have your own private verdict, something inside you still won't agree to stop. Instinction is not what that is. You were not old enough to be asked about that when it was put in you. Do this with me now. Take a deep breath in and hold it for a moment longer than you normally would. Feel how much space you have been taking up. It should be let out slowly, until there is nothing left. The verdict should then go out with the air. That's the whole package. There was never a fight. Years of being closed, it was like a hand being opened. You just did that. Take a second to feel the empty part of that breath before you take the next one. That empty space is where something that has been fixed will go. Now get up and say these with me. I've been caught. Not forgotten. Not still open. Not being looked at. Written down, dated, and always there. There is no lack of faith in me. I am a person with a strong signal and a receiver that is getting back online. Please don't punish me by being so quiet. I'm being weighed down by it, and it has a length that is almost up. I'm not behind schedule. I was still here when the record was played again. I'm not less important than you. I am currently being fixed, which is a short, term state with a clear end. Say the last one again, this time in your own voice, right now, from anywhere. I'm being fixed, and that's the end of it. Yes, you said that out loud. Write it down in the comments so that people can see it. I've been recorded and will be online soon. Finally, if you know someone who has been feeling like they're not good enough, send this to them tonight. By sending this prophetic word to your network, you activate the anointing, and let them know about your breakthrough. Not tomorrow. When a verdict is read out loud, 1 at 3 a.m. is more important than 1 at noon. Stay still now. You don't need to do anything else tonight. Before you go to sleep, you don't have to believe hard, stand up straight, or feel a certain way. The entry was made and is being held without your help. You don't need to protect something that was never in danger. Is that okay? Don't change anything about the room. Now for the thing I didn't say. I told you at the start that I would tell you what happened in that silence, and why it was the most personal thing that had ever been said about you. It's here. People didn't say anything back when you did that small thing a few days ago, because by Thursday, a word can be misheard, forgotten, and argued out of someone. That's why there was silence. And the sound of your name being written in permanent ink into the silent ledger by a hand that had been waiting a long time to do it was the silence. That's why it was quiet. That's why it seemed so big and didn't say anything. It was quiet on purpose, since permanence doesn't need a lot of noise. There you have it. The restlessness you came in with is not really restlessness after all. It's how someone feels when standing next to something huge that has already moved, but hasn't said anything yet, because it doesn't need to. You now understand what it is. You now understand why it stopped. So now you know that the only thing left between you and the record in the room is a receiver, which can be fixed. Go fix yourself up. Before we get to the end of this powerful story, let's reflect on this deep truth. You did not find this message by accident. This is a divine appointment meant specifically for you. You are being invited into a protected, faith-filled community at the link in the description and pinned comment, a place where divine abundance is not just a hope, but a promise built on the Word. By heading to the site right now, you are unlocking access to a sacred community of like-minded believers. When you join our membership tiers, you gain immediate entry to powerful content, daily devotions, and divine insights that are hidden from the world. This is your chance to enter a sanctuary, where you will receive spiritual guidance, unwavering support on our prayer wall, and speedy progress toward your destiny. Do not let this moment of destiny pass you by. Your breakthrough is waiting. Join our inner circle through the exclusive link in the description. This is how you guarantee you never miss the personalized messages and spiritual warfare tools meant to elevate your life. If you feel called to deepen your connection, the link is waiting for you in both the pinned comment and the description. For those who want to amplify this work and carry the light home, you can find our guided ebooks and Bibles in the pinned comment. Whether you join as a member or sow a seed through our resources, your presence and energy change the world. Take the step. Your abundance awaits.